All right, Buffs Nation, what is going on? Hope you all are having a wonderful Friday, a great start to your weekend, whether you're watching this live or on replay. I really appreciate you joining me. This is a very special and important interview and conversation for me because I am joined by none other than Tim Fitzgerald from Go Powercat. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and looking forward to discussing a lot of college football with you.
Yeah, I'm kind of doing a tour today around YouTube and having a blast. I love all these creators that are popping up. It is a huge media shift, and the number of people that are doing shows like this. It's accessible for fans. It's enjoyable. You can find who you're comfortable with. I love doing all these shows.
Oh, man. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, especially with people that have been in this for such a long time, such as yourself. It really means a lot that you'd meet with me virtually as I'm chilling here in my bedroom doing this. So let's go ahead and get right into it. I mean, CU announces last week that they're going to be returning to the Big 12. Obviously, there's been a lot of rumors of what has been going to happen next with Arizona State, Utah. What's the future of Oregon, Washington, the rest of the pack? What has been kind of your impressions in terms of what you were figuring was going to happen versus what the news is today? If there's any updates or changes with that.
This is basically playing out exactly how we thought it would. I mean, it's amazing to see that the four corner schools have been the focus. You know, if Oregon wanted to jump into the Big 12, they would have been a priority, but that's not been there. As in this world of conferences seeming to have no regional grasp anymore other than the SEC or maybe the Sun Belt, the Big 12 is being conscious of how they pocket schools. You know, they really want that. BYU, Utah, Colorado, Arizona State. That's a nice little pocket of schools for them to have. And while you're going to have to travel a lot in this conference, within that grouping, you don't.
Yeah.
The only thing that we've totally missed is we totally miscalculated the ineptitude of Pac-12 leadership. The inability of the leaders out there, whether it's at the conference or the school level, to make a damn decision. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing it again today as we go live. The Pac-12 is going to stay together. And I'm like, no, they're not. Oregon and Washington are not going to sign a grant of rights. They never were. They don't want to be tied in. And what happens? They say, no, we're not signing a grant of rights, and it blows up again. It's been inevitable, no matter how many names we've been called, conspiracy theorists. And this is where we're going to end up. It's just taken a lot longer because the leaders can't lead. They can't make decisions very well out west. And that's why the Pac-12 is in this situation. And that's why conferences like the Big 12 are going to grow because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It has been a night and day contrast between how the Big 12 has reacted from OU and Texas leaving the conference versus how the Pac-12 has behaved with the LA schools going over to the Big 10. And I think this is kind of funny because, I mean, you've been right in the middle of it with all of this discourse about, the Pac-12 being academically superior, kind of holding an elitist kind of position over some of the other college football programs within the Big 12. And I think it is pretty funny. I think some of this is going to be used as a case study in some of these big businesses or business schools like at Stanford or at Cal, contrast of kind of how you create positive organizational change, how you grow and mold yourself for sustainability in the future. Mm-hmm. It's just quite ironic, the ineptitude that we've seen. And when I saw this news this morning about how it might stay together, it was something that I just had to laugh at because as being a Pac-12 fan the last however many years, we're used to this. Empty promises, all talk, no action. What has been, and I kind of want to backtrack just a little bit, sure, to this point last year, Brett Yormark is hired. I guess George Kliavkov has already kind of been in place running things with the pack for a little bit. But what was your expectation of Brett Yormark? What was your expectation of what was going to happen with the Big 12? And yeah, your thoughts moving forward from this past summer.
Let me turn the clock back just a little bit further to when this all went down with Oklahoma and Texas saying, and thanks to Texas A&M for leaking it. Good teammates there. The conference was dead. Everyone said, they were celebrating. Guys like Stuart Mandel and others were clearly rooting for the destruction of the Big 12. It was a very odd thing to watch. And it caused a lot of bitterness, and people are still, settling those debts, including me. But while everyone was dancing on the grave, the Big 12 decided, hey, we're free of the oppression. Literally, that's what it felt like, of Texas. That we aren't free to make decisions without them threatening us or bringing in their voting block to deny us. And it goes back to when they went to 10 schools. They were wanting to go to 12 and had Cincinnati and Louisville at the time. And Texas said, no, we're just going to do 10. And the reason why was they didn't want to lose their voting block. They didn't want to bring in 4 new schools and maybe lose power. So they were always suppressing the conference, holding it back from what it could be, so that they could keep it under its thumb. So the second they were gone, Bob Bowlesby's like, well, F it. I'm free. And he went and got with the other ADs and presidents, said, here's what I want to do. And they identified the 4, certainly the 3 best non-Power 5 products out there. And I'm sorry, Houston's the 4th. They were not, there's kind of a gap in the TV ratings between Cincinnati, UCF, BYU, and then drop down to Houston. But they played little defense there, because this whole narrative with the Pac-12 would be wildly different if they hadn't invited Houston. So they were talking to SMU, but what if they were talking to Houston, a huge market, a huge footprint in the Big 12? Nobody cares if they want to take SMU. They don't bring their own neighborhood. Their own people a block away from their campus are going, hey, what's Texas? When's Texas on TV? It's crazy to think that they thought SMU would solve any problems. Houston would have brought a presence. So they played a little defense and brought Houston in. And also, I think it's in the bylaws, we got to have 4 Texas schools. I'm not really a fan of that, but that's okay. But it was a brilliant expansion on every level. And I hear Pac-12 people, well, hold on, the Big 12 can add non-Power 5 schools and survive. Why can't the Pac-12? It's not about Power 5. It's about who. Yeah. And UCF is going to be a major player in the Power 5 within 5 years, 10 years certainly, if not 5. BYU already can play at this level. And Cincinnati was just in a playoff, so they have an upside that is hard to match. And then you got Houston, which now, if they can keep more Houston players at home, it's going to be a problem. It was about who, not, what level they play at. And it's been brilliant. And in roars Brett Yormark and gives the conference the confidence it needed to say, you know what, we're going to survive. This is what we're going to do. Just really definitive leadership, and not my way or the highway. Very inclusive in his leadership. He could do, he could write a book about good leadership, because he's a strong leader. He has strong ideas, but his ideas aren't better than anyone else's in the room. And that's what good leaders do. And he's led the Big 12 from being on the brink of destruction to probably being the final member of the Power 3 if ACC comes apart. It's been a remarkable couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. You couldn't have asked for a better job. I don't think so. And to be able to unify all the schools after that, it's quite impressive, because again, here in the Pac, we were going through that same thing with having USC, UCLA leave. And there is an opportunity to where you could kind of galvanize the remaining schools together, and that just never happened. It's very clear that everybody's looking out for their own interests, at this point, and that's why you're seeing these moves. People need to, in these programs, they need to take care of themselves apart from this conference. That's falling apart. Another question that I have for you regarding the new look of the Big 12, it doesn't seem like, to your point, that there's not like this school coming in that's going to be kind of dominating the room, being the major voice, kind of playing these political games to kind of get their way within the conference, aside from the rest of the programs. Is that something that Brett Yormark is being very intentional with as they look for other schools to expand, keeping that sort of feel and continuity?
Well, if you look at the history of the Big 12, now with Colorado coming back, it's 5 of the original members have departed.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like bonds of brotherhood. Excuse my sexist language. Bonds of brotherhood within this conference. They've been through so much together, and they've persisted, and they've built their own brands. Kansas State football, Oklahoma State football, West Virginia. They've kind of risen with the tide of the entire conference. And so everything the Pac-12 wanted to talk about was staying together. The Big 12 really was invested in that. Once opportunities to leave kind of diminished, they stopped shopping. They just like, okay, we're going to stick this together. We're going to bring in schools. We're going to be fine. And they have been. And it's been brilliant leadership. Pac-12 never really had that. They want to stay together, but not that much. We want to stay together as long as the Big Ten doesn't call. We want to stay together as long as, there's always that asterisk with we're committed to the Pac-12 that they've never been able to overcome. And it's been kind of a false brotherhood where they will gladly stab each other in the back. And, again, we saw the lack of unity this morning with how things played out with their board meeting.
Absolutely. Now, regarding Oregon and Washington and their pursuit of the Big 12, earlier this week, in regards to them joining that conference, it was discussed, or it's pretty probable, it seems, that they will be getting a partial share. People have kind of speculated it would be around that $40 million mark. I've seen this morning that, that number might be a little bit lower in terms of the partial share. What is your kind of read right now on Washington and Oregon in the Big 12? And is that going to dictate? Is the Big 12 kind of waiting for that to happen before they invite any more schools?
You got to. I mean, I think there's less interest in Washington than Oregon for whatever reason from the Big 12 level. Maybe that's, going the other direction. Washington just doesn't share the interest. They've checked, they've done their homework, but they're just not interested. The Big 12's beneath them. And if you have access to the Big 10, you got to go. I mean, if you think that's what's best for you got to go. So I think they'll wait on Oregon to make sure this is what's going to take place because it's fluid. As you mentioned, we were hearing Cal and Stanford too. Now that seems off the table. You just got to make sure everything's taking place. I hope Arizona makes it official here soon. So they're at 14. And then they can really wait. They don't need to hurry. Here's the bottom line, though, David. If you're the Big 12, you don't want to be anyone's parking lot. You don't want to be the place, well, we're going to come, this contract, this new deal is worth 7 years. And keep in mind that Big 12 new deal doesn't go into place till 25. So there's another season on the old deal. They're 1 year behind the Pac-12, which is why Brett Yormark jumping the line was so important. Yeah. But they don't want anyone to join this conference with the idea that, well, we'll come for now, but if we get an offer, we're leaving. They want people to be invested in this conference. And while we recognize that if Kansas gets a Big 10 offer or CU gets a Big 10 offer, nobody's going to be surprised if you leave. But we don't want you coming to the conference saying, yeah, sure, we'll come on in for now. That's not at all what the Big 12 is interested in. They want schools that are invested. And the actions as of late of Arizona State probably create some hesitancy that President Michael Crow is mucking it all up and might completely damage the future of his institution. I don't think the board will let him get away with that. And if he wants to stand fast, I think it might get to the point where they remove him because this is obvious to everyone, apparently, except him. And Utah's just being weird. Utah just loves life in the Pac-12 so much they can't even imagine it's ending. I keep using Titanic references with the Pac-12, but it's like, why should we get off this boat? Did you see the dining room? Yeah, it's underwater. You should probably get off the boat. There's a lifeboat right there. Utah's been acting like the lifeboat caused the sinking of the Titanic, not the iceberg, which is their media rights. So they've been screwy. So I wouldn't be surprised if Yormark says, "Okay, you guys aren't sure. Well, we're not sure either. We're going to wait at 14."
Wow,
and
yeah,
it really wouldn't shock me.
I think to your point too, in terms of CU's place in the Big 12, when we spoke on Saturday on Jason Watkins' show, y'all had a great point. CU, once we got out of that Texas pipeline within the Big 12, our recruiting suffered immensely. And Nebraska, even though they are in the Big 10, yeah, like they've suffered from that same recruiting problem, not having a pipeline in Texas either. So I think one thing that really excites me about moving forward in the new look Big 12 is having all of that pipeline opened up again.
Right.
And I don't think that's something that, the more I think about it, especially with Prime here as our head coach, that's not anything that I'm interested in getting out of.
Yeah, it's vital.
Yeah, it's absolutely crucial. And I kind of want to transition a little bit into talking more about CU re-entering the Big 12 over this last year. I mean, it went back as far as last summer, starting to hear the rumors about some of the Four Corner schools possibly coming back here. I thought that was, at this point last year, I thought that was a crapshoot for CU. I thought that we were more destined for the Mountain West than we were the Big 12. But especially with coming back to a conference where, okay, it's definitely a new look conference from the last time we were in it, but still a handful of legacy programs from the old Big 12. What has been your impression and beat on some of the old schools inviting CU to come back? Have we had at the conference level, have we had to get other schools warmed up to this idea of us coming back? What has been your impression of it?
Well, from my point of view, when we all kind of started down this road and we thought Yormark would only add 3 from the Pac-12 to go with BYU to have 4 out west, Colorado was the one on the out for me. I mean, they left the conference, they made that choice, and I noted that they seem to have adapted the Pac-12 approach to college sports, which is it's not really that important, because it's easy to argue Colorado decided football excellence wasn't really, we'll field a team. The way they went after Coach Prime, the definitive nature of making that move, not from an athletic standpoint, but from the university standpoint. The university made that decision, not the athletic department, because he's a huge investment. There's some risks there to go with him. He's a huge headline. He could be a distraction on campus. There's a lot of negatives, but at the end of the day, it was a positive because, the Big 12 said Colorado's serious about football again, like they were in the early days. They decided, we get it now. We've kind of screwed up by ignoring football. We're back in business. And Coach Prime did that. And I think it changes the whole narrative with Colorado and made them very desirable as a cool story, and the added commitment to bring back into the Big 12. And I'm overjoyed. Plus, as I've told you privately, I get my trips to Colorado back. And nobody really thinks of me, David. It's they don't give me Vegas, but they got me Colorado, so I'm kind of happy.
I love that. And side note, I would hope if there's one thing to maybe take from what the Pac-12 has done recently, maybe we can have some events out in Vegas.
Right.
I would love to have an excuse to get back out there again, whether that's for football, whether that's for basketball. I love being there, just not too long. I think 3 days is kind of my maximum. 2 days is, about the right amount of time, I feel like, in Vegas. But I would love to see that. But nonetheless, I'm really going to love having so many of the fan bases come out here to Boulder, because like you said, there are schools in some of these college towns. They're not too far away from Boulder. You can make that drive. We're used to, as of recently, having Nebraska fans come out here from Lincoln for these games. And y'all better bring the food. We need the food. We can bring everything else that Colorado provides, whether that is the wonderful beer we have here and our other vices that happen to be legal or decriminalized here.
No
We're
idea
looking
what you're
forward
talking
to it.
No clue.
But it's going to be a lot of fun now. Let's talk a little bit about CU kind of revitalizing hopefully some of these old time rivalries from the Big 12. The Big 12 is in an interesting place because I feel like it's a very strong conference. You don't have any teams right now that I feel like are cakewalks as opposed to the cakewalk that we have been the last however many years. But we're coming into a conference that is of quality, and that includes Kansas State.
Yeah.
And would love for my viewers, Bus fans that are just now getting into the team or that have been following the team in the Pac-12 recently, we haven't paid much attention to what has been going on in the Big 12. So I would love to hear a quick synopsis from you on where the program, Kansas State, has been recently and, what your expectations are for this year and as we will play, head-to-head here in 24.
Football under Chris Kleiman is, kind of regaining its status at Kansas State. He's been a brilliant hire. Yeah. He goes about it differently than Bill Snyder, but they're kind of the same in that they want to develop players to never have the highest recruiting classes. But I mean, you look at the last draft, the first round pick was essentially a 2-star glorified walk-on that they gave a scholarship to at the last second in Felix Anudike-Uzomah. Deuce Vaughn was a 3-star that, was available when Chris Kleiman was hired in December. He was still uncommitted. That's kind of been the foundation of how you build football at K-State. Yeah. You go find the guys that got overlooked that physically can develop or do things. Maybe they're the little guys like a Darren Sproles or a Tyler Lockett or a Deuce Vaughn, but they've always had a place at Kansas State. I think what Colorado fans are going to find when they travel around the old Big 8 brethren stadiums and facilities is how impactful the arms race in the Big 12 has been. Kansas State's football stadium will be a foreign place for Colorado fans. It's wildly nicer, more developed, and it reflects the importance of the conference as put on football. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing that they'll notice. Iowa State, as their stadium is, it's really, I'm not a big fan of their stadium overall, but they pack it at 60-some thousand. They're great fans. And they're really proud of their bridge. That's kind of an inside Big 12 joke that you need to get up to speed on. They built a beautiful bridge. It's just so gorgeous. It's on their promotional materials. It's so beautiful. It's a bridge. It's not a car bridge, a pedestrian bridge, so you can walk over the cars. Anyhow, but Kansas is finally getting busy with some of their stadium renovations. Oklahoma State Stadium is unbelievable now. So it's going to be fun to, watch the Colorado fans that do like to travel or are in the areas of some of these institutions to see, realize, wow, that football in the Big 12 has moved a long ways in the last 12 years. And that's cool. I'm really happy for the many K-State fans scattered across Western Kansas who are as close, if not closer to Boulder than they are Manhattan, Kansas, and the ability to get to a game more easily. Because those folks make the drive to home games 5 hours each way, 6 hours each way throughout the season. So I'm happy that they might have a road game that makes life easier for them.
Wow. Yeah. And going back to playing these schools, you can call them the truck stop conference or whatever, or call us the truck stop conference. But at the end of the day, you're going to environments where, they are very passionate. They're fun places to watch college football. Right. They're fun college towns and cities to be in for games. And that's something that, as a Buff that was at the university recently, we just haven't experienced that. There isn't that level of passion, as you get more west to the Pacific when it comes to sports. I'm trying to think of okay, where are how many toxic fan bases do we have just in, any sports, west, starting from the Rocky Mountains on, and it's only, I can only name a few fan bases in pro and college sports, and that's really it. And it feels great to be going back to the heartland of college football back to where everybody cares. And I love how you talked about, Kleiman and Kansas State's approach to building this program, where you're taking guys that maybe are diamonds in the rough or overlooked, and you're building, developing talent that's getting to the NFL. It's going to be fun to be part of that environment, because CU's going to have to get back to doing that as well if we're going to sustain success. I love the fact that we're bringing in some high profile players, some of the highest profile players we've ever brought in the history of the program. But we're really going to have to be right there when it comes to talent and player development with the rest of the Big 12, because that is how they have survived. That is how they've continued to grow and become successful. So very much looking forward to it. I know we got a couple minutes here and then we'll wrap up, but Fitz, I would love to hear from you what your expectations are for conference realignment leading into the season. If you had to kind of predict maybe the next steps or the things that we will hear before the season opens, what are your thoughts and feelings on that right now?
First of all, it's disappointing. I mean, I miss the old Big 12. It was broken apart from realignment. Trying to cast the Big 12 as the bad guys here is kind of comical, since nobody's been victimized more than that, the Big 12. But it's changed sports, in better ways and bad ways and comical ways. One of my favorite tweets through this whole thing was someone, I'm brainstorming here. What if the Big 10 expanded out west, added a bunch of teams, and then there was an East Conference and a West Conference, and then the winners would play in the Rose Bowl every year? What do you think of that? I mean, that's the absurdity we're at here. It's like the dream scenarios, we had them, but now we're going to reinvent the same dream. Mm-hmm. And this coast-to-coast thing creates challenges, and I think that's why trying to get groupings of schools is important to the Big 12, so it cuts down on travel. But I mean, the Los Angeles schools being in the Big 10, with the next closest school being Lincoln, Nebraska, which is regarded as the Los Angeles of the Midwest. That it's absurd. It's absurd to think about, not football or basketball, but soccer and baseball, and the amount of travel is just going to be stupid. It just doesn't make sense. But that's where we're at, and now it's all about survival as a conference, and the Big 12 seems to be in really good shape with that. And some people still want to scoff at the quality. It's always the Nebraska fans lately. It's like they got to compensate for their own failures by insulting the Big 12. But Big 12 is going to be just fine. I think as we see programs like Kansas State, TCU, Baylor kind of continue to recruit the way they have and get more and more good players, highly regarded players that can come in and have an immediate impact, you're going to see them. The 12-team playoff changes everything. You start showing up in that on a regular basis, your whole persona, your whole image across college football changes. If you're in that 3 years in a row, all of a sudden, man, you're a contender. And maybe you would have been in a similar bowl 3 years in a row in the past, but it just didn't, have the same oomph. So it's going to be a fun period of college football, even though it's weird and unfortunate that we're about to see the Pac-12 collapse and maybe the ACC in the future too.
Yeah. It's definitely unprecedented times. Things are, I feel like, moving as fast as ever. One quick question. I want to hold you one more minute, because one of our commenters, Lewis Pat, brought up a great question is what happens with Oregon State and Washington State now? Because I'm pretty confident that Stanford and Cal will not want to be associated with them moving forward if, the rest of the conference leaves. Do you feel like this is an opportunity for the AAC or the Mountain West to maybe get a little bit more aggressive, to move up there in terms of maybe the conference rankings, become that maybe not a Power 5, but maybe that fifth most powerful conference? Would these two schools be a target of some of these other conferences?
Well, you free those schools up from the academic tyranny of Cal and Stanford, and I mean that literally. That every decision needs to be seen through the glasses of academics. It just doesn't work for an athletic conference to be functioning that way in this modern era. I kind of hope that some remnants of the Pac-12 can keep the name alive and, maybe merge with elements of the Mountain West or the entire Mountain West. I think the Sun Belt, more than the AAC, offers a good, blueprint for what needs to happen. They've built a really strong regional southern, south of the Mason-Dixon line conference that plays really quality football. In fact, K-State's got Troy on their schedule, and that's probably by far the toughest team on the non-conference because they have Missouri too, and that's SEC, and they're supposed to be good, but they're not. Sorry, Missouri fans, but it's true. But I think they have a real opportunity. And the great thing about Oregon State and Washington State, they're not going to look down their noses at Fresno or Boise or UNLV or San Diego State. And that's what the academic elites have done for so long. Nobody was good enough for them. They had an opportunity to crush the Big 12 and add really good programs, but the academics aren't quite good enough. And so that didn't happen. And it has to be a calculation. I mean, I understand the hesitancy with Boise because their historic quality of education has not been great. But just to look down your nose at everyone else turns everyone off. But freed up with that, I hope they form some kind of Western conference, a Pac West type conference, which I think would be great. Kind of keep the Pac-12 alive a little bit, and maybe bring some more schools in. Maybe this is an opportunity for North Dakota State and South Dakota State and, Montana schools, someone else to step up from FCS to FBS, because I think those schools are qualified to do it in the same way that we've seen James Madison do it highly effectively. So I hope they carve out a new existence out there. You better find a new commissioner to do that, someone that can actually see what's in front of him. But I think there's a healthy future for the schools out west, and I don't really care about Cal and Stanford. They can go. Why don't they just go form an FBS Ivy League with Vanderbilt, Northwestern, and Tulane and Rice, and anyone else that wants to be stuffy about academics? Go form your own conference. You can play on PBS. That plays well into your academics, and everyone's happy.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think where we're going right now, like college football, these conferences, the priority is athletics now. Moving forward with this expansion, especially in the Big 12, what kind of brands you can bring in, you better be taking athletics seriously. So I'm excited to see where it goes. I do feel for Oregon State and Washington State fans because, that they're passionate, quality fan bases. They're not the largest. They're not in the biggest media markets. But, for instance, Oregon State last year was a ranked program, and people are expecting them to do quality things this year again. And it sucks to see that because of some other schools kind of hoarding power, you see them kind of have very little control over their own future. But we'll see where they go from here. It should be nothing less than very exciting here in the next few weeks. And Tim, I really appreciate you coming on. It really means the world that you would do this so short notice. And I look forward to talking more Big 12, CU, KSU with you as the season goes on and as we approach 2024. If you could give my viewers a quick breakdown of where to find you and what you have going on, that would be wonderful.
Well, first of all, I'm going to be in Colorado. The wife and I are coming out there starting Sunday.
Love it.
So if you want to meet us at the Dish Room in Burlington on Sunday night, we'll be eating there. We always stop for the Dish Room. Anyhow, go Powercat. We're part of the 24/7 Sports Network. If you're a K-State fan or a fan of any Big 12 institution or national institution, there's a site for you at 24/7. We're having a 60% off sale right now, so it's a pretty great sale to take advantage of leading into football. But mostly, if you enjoy YouTube videos, go over to the Go Powercat channel. Please subscribe to that. We're trying to grow that. We're trying to get over the 10K mark before we get to football season. I do daily videos, short form, 3-minute, 4-minute videos. I have a lot of fun with them. Some of them are serious. Some of them are not. We do a little bit longer stuff. We have the daily deliveries and our deep purples, and cover Big 12. We cover national sports, but we cover a lot of K-State too. But go ahead and subscribe to us to help that algorithm is just, it's amazing. When you get new subscribers and they comment or they hit the thumbs up, it just starts to exponentially spread across the entire platform of YouTube.
Yeah, it's amazing how it works. And yeah, I'm definitely a big fan of your short form videos. I've definitely watched a lot of them this past week leading up to this. So thank you again, Tim. I'll let you get running. I have to get running as well. And viewers, yeah, please go subscribe to Go Powercat. Again, please hit the like on your way out. That's going to help push this out to other college football fans. And if you are watching the replay, thank you for spending some of your day with us. And please let me know in the comments any thoughts that you have on conference realignment, CSU, KSU, and all that's ahead. So thank you again so much, everybody. And as always, Sco Buffs.